Hello everyone, my name is Miljenka Buljević and I will be moderating the panel on culture and green Europe. And I have a pleasure of discussing this topic with three cultural operators from different countries and diverse cultural fields. We are here with Veronika Burány from Pinkponilo. Pinkponilo from Budapest, who is into fashion and into creating clothes and sustainable practices. Davor Mišković from Drugo from Rijeka, who are the organization that is from the independent cultural scene that is dealing with visual arts, with contemporary arts, and with multidisciplinary projects, can I say that? And Zala Velkavrh, am I correcting it correctly, from Slovenia, who is with the urban planning studio Prostorož. So, without me introducing them, I would start, because we are running late, I would just start with a mention that today is the hottest day of this heat wave. So probably we just discussed before the panel that this is probably the best day to talk about culture and green Europe. Without further ado, thank you very much for being here, and I would like to ask you all to tell us what does greening mean in the context of your cultural practice. So, to tell us something about your organization, but also how you tackle or how you come across the environmental issues. Zala, maybe you can begin.
Prostorož was established in 2004. As a non-profit urban planning studio, and our main focus is public space. We want to renovate public space, we want to rejuvenate it, we want to invite people to spend more time in public spaces. And I think the connection with greenery and green public spaces is a natural one, because green public space like parks, trees with a lot of shade provide more comfort for the users of public space. And this is one of the key elements that keeps people in the city.
And Davor?
Well, Drugo is established 20 plus years ago, and it's dealing with really different topics through the different medias. And as we see our role as a cultural workers or art producers, it's to be salt on a wound, you know. And this is our kind of main approach. So basically, we are choosing topics that are not an agenda of the most media, kind of some marginal wounds, if I may say, and we put the salt on it, you know, kind of provoking and trying to to get reaction from the audiences and wider public. But since we are kind of dealing with topics that are not an agenda of the main media, that keeps us marginal and with low impact. And sometimes it's picked up by kind of other people, and then it kind of works very well, but sometimes it's not. But still, kind of we are proud that we kind of tackle certain issues that we find important. So in doing that, environmental issues, of course, were several times in our programs, because it is really a wound that is widening, you know, and it's need lots of salt to provoke reaction of the public. Thank you.
Veronika.
Pinkponilo was founded in 2017, so 5 years ago, and it started off as a community space where we provide dressmaking workshops for the local community. And As you know, when it comes to fashion industry, it's one of the most polluting industries in the world, and there are these big fast fashion companies, there are luxury brands, there are small local brands and sustainable fashion brands, but there's not a very open communication about the topic with the consumers. So the idea was to have a space where we can engage with the consumers a bit more, and by teaching them how to make their own clothes or how to mend their clothes, to show them how much effort is put into making a single garment. In this way, they kind of start to think about their clothes in a different way and also impact their own environment and their own communities. And over the time, we started to deal with production services as well, and now we have a very broad clientele, and we see the problems of the fashion industry stakeholders and what issues they face, and then we also have conversations with the consumers and the local community. So we operate as a bridge in between the fashion brands and the community.
All this sounds extremely interesting, really, and especially because you all work in the field of culture, but from a completely different perspectives, and I'm sure that you are using completely different approaches. So maybe you can single out a project or some projects that is specific for this topic, but also that you would like to share with us, Zala.
Because we are a non-profit organization, we can't plan and renovate the whole city. So we mostly deal with different alternative tactics. For example, tactical urbanism, temporary use. We started 2 community spaces in forgotten construction sites, and one of my personally favorite projects happened before I joined the team. It's called The Optimists, and maybe it illustrates our approach a lot, because we were invited to participate in the Triennial of Contemporary Art in Ljubljana, and my colleagues decided that they want to put sailboats in a fountain in a museum square. The museum square is a really hot place full of concrete, surrounded by 4 museums. It's owned by the Ministry of Culture, and there should be a fountain in the middle of the square, but it was empty all the time because it was broken. So in order to place the sailboats in the broken fountain, the fountain had to be fixed. And this was actually the true intent of the project, was to force the Ministry of Culture to fix the fountain, to put the water in, to cool the square, and then place small sailboats, which are called the Optimists, like the small one, you probably know them. Place them in the fountain and put some steps so people could access them and just spend time on the water.
That's great. Davor, can you share a project?
Yeah, I could. A few years ago, we did the project on Adriatic. Of course, we are living on Adriatic Sea, and it's an important resource for all of us in Croatia. And we wanted to see what's going on with Adriatic from the environmental perspective. And of course, there is many different impacts by humans that we can observe, and some of them are more known, some of them less known. But of course, plastic rising the temperature and etc. But what struck me most, it was nautical tourism, impact of nautical tourism that is in a way, really rising industry in Croatia, but not only in Croatia, in the Mediterranean area, I mean, at all. And, you know, we wanted to present what is the environmental impact on that, on Adriatic Sea, but also we kind of presented lots of data that was kind of quite shocking to the audience, but kind of, I would say, known to the decision makers. You know, for example, that in 2018, just one cruising company, Carnival Corporation, emitted 10 times more of the sulfur in the atmosphere than 260 plus million cars in Europe. So, I mean, so that's the kind of scale. Then we also, you know, presented other kind of impacts, like, for example, Croatia is a kind of leader in a charter ship, charter boats fleet, and many of these boats are painted by the copper-based paint that is kind of becoming toxic in a way, and in certain areas in Adriatic Sea, it's already kind of the levels of toxicity, it's kind of dangerous for humans. And what is also kind of interesting that this kind of industry is kind of damaging other industries like kind of seashell farmings and fishery industry and so on. So it is the kind of, for me, it was really interesting to present this to the audience, and what is also paradoxical in all the things that this didn't stop. I mean, it's Croatia is not only Croatia, also other countries in the Mediterranean still heavily investing in a kind of nautical tourism. You know, new marines are opening and so on, and it seems that kind of impact that is known, because also the studies that are presenting this data are kind of made by state institutions in Croatia, like Institute of Tourism or Ruđer Bošković, or on a European level also. So kind of what struck me really is that kind of, how to say, neglectance of the kind of really damaging impact of this industry.
But you are now talking about the research results, but you presented them in the form of a...
We presented them in an exhibition and in a kind of discursive program, so kind of basically very simple formats, you know, just kind of hoping that somebody will pick up and kind of make a scandal of it, but it didn't. I mean, also it didn't when Institute for Tourism published the data, also Ruđer Bošković. I mean, it seems that media somehow don't want to put this on agenda because it's a really heavy problem. It's a really deep wound that is kind of growing, at least in Croatia.
Yeah, I love the fact that we're both talking about sailboats accidentally.
Veronika.
There are no sailboats in my project.
Only sails.
Yeah. But over the time, we kind of turned into a creative studio, and we have our own art and design projects as well. And last year, we had a joint one-day event. There was an exhibition and a performance. The theme of the exhibition was the emotional attachment to our clothes and the stories that we have stocked in our wardrobe, basically. And we put out an open call for the community so that they could send us their own stories related to their clothes, even from childhood or from important days, or just the story of their favorite jeans. And we played these stories in the background of the exhibition, and as a designer I also worked with my own stories and my own clothes, and I presented an upcycled collection, the exhibition, along with these personal stories as well. And then we had a performance where we worked with a contemporary dancer from Budapest, and we made a costume for her, We worked with a London-based company called Post-Carbon Lab, the idea was that the fabric was dyed with a photosynthetic dye, and it kind of changed colors while the performance was going, because the dye reacted to heat and water as well, so sweat, basically, yes. And yeah, so it was more about innovative techniques and how the body and the clothes are in relation to each other. We did have some technical issues with that because it was a live thing. It needed to be sprayed during the process quite often, and it was accidentally sent to Sweden, and we received a completely different order. So there were some mix-up, but it was still a successful experiment for us and a way to build international networks as well with sustainable innovators.
Okay. That would be my question now. You mentioned it, I mean, you all three mentioned it. What do you think are the limits of working on this topic from the cultural perspective? Because Davor mentioned now that the message is not getting across, the salt on the wound is not enough. What are the frustrations that you feel when you work on the topic of environment from the perspective, from the cultural field? Because we all think that maybe some scientists in some labs, in some research institutes could do more, but then is the frustration working from the culture bigger or not than working from another perspective?
We experience technical issues all the time. Like, for example, with the fountain project, the fountain broke again, so if you visit Ljubljana today, the square is empty again and it's super hot. What I think is an advantage of working in the field of arts and culture is the fact that you can the regulations, the city poses on urban space are very strict, and it should be like that. But if you work as an artist, you are able to bend at least some of the rules. If you pack an urban intervention as an art project, you get the permit, because it's not a renovation. It's art. And this is the advantage, but like the negative effect is, first of all, that we are, of course, not a municipality. We can't rebuild the whole city, even though this is not our ambition. Just
to rebuild the city?
No, not at all. But also the fact that it's difficult to get so many stakeholders that are needed to, for example, I don't know, plant the right kind of trees on the right street with the right amount of soil and maintain the trees for, I don't know, 20 years, because that's how much time it's needed for the trees to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that, message is not kind of immediately picked up, but with the kind of cumulative effect, of many organizations, kind of the message is spread from the margin in the center somehow. It's a slow process, but it's going. And sometimes on these margins of the art world, kind of some things that happen that kind of have a huge impact immediately. And this is something that happened even to us. And happened to other artists who are dealing with different issues, but also environmental issues. I will just remind you how Oliver Ressler, for example, did a simple gesture to put a Norwegian flag in the oil and put it kind of on a, I don't know, how, kind of stool, you know, had a huge impact in Norway. I mean, this simple gesture could kind of really create a kind of reaction. So, from my perspective, I'm not frustrated with that. I'm frustrated with many other things, but not with that one, you know, because it's going on. I mean, and it's somehow, I would say, it's necessary that somebody is doing that, you know, and I think that kind of and I think my team and we are all kind of happy with our role, you know, that dealing with these issues.
I think for us a big issue that we face is with the local stakeholders and not having an open conversation or the difficulty of reaching the right people. Because at the moment in Hungary, there's not much governmental support for sustainable cultural projects. And so this way, it's really difficult to reach a large audience, I think, because we can, of course, we can do our own thing and communicate on social media, which we do quite actively, but it's still going to be our own little bubble in a way. And I think it's really difficult to break that bubble and reach more people. It's not impossible, but I think, especially when it comes to the fashion industry, it's a very complex and difficult field. And there are so many contradicting ideas and informations. For us, working in the cultural field at the moment is very challenging alone, and if we put the sustainability aspect in it, then it's kind of it's even more challenging, I think. But I can see some positive changes and some positive shifts. So hopefully this will develop in the future.
But what I hear from you is that A, you love what you do and you believe in it, which is great, and B, there is a kind of a small community that you work with. And my question now is, what do you think that culture as a field, not you as individual organizations and individual operators, can bring to the European Green Deal? Now this is the big topic, and we see that Europe is kind of mainstreaming the topic through different funds, different measures, actions, and all of that. What do you think that should be what can culture and cultural operators bring to the table in that discussion?
I can. I think it's a culture can offer alternative paths to reach people, and you know, when it comes to the general public and thinking about sustainability, sometimes it comes down to prices, sometimes it comes down to personal preferences, but if we engage with the community and have an open conversation and create programs which are exciting and interesting and more engaging, then it can reach their mind and their heart a little better. So I think culture can have an impact on the emotional aspect, and that is really important when you have to make changes in your everyday life, I think, if that makes sense. So I think maybe it sounds very simple, but I think culture is really, really important if you want to change perspectives and the opinions of people.
Okay, I mean, some economists call our sector Cinderella sector. I mean, it's a care, crafts, and culture. And this Cinderella has a very low carbon footprint, whole sector, you know. And there is some proposals also by economists and also other people who are thinking how to go, you know, what kind of society we want to build and what kind of economy, are proposing that this sector should expand. You know, that is a kind of different idea of growth, in a way, kind of post-growth society, in a way that kind of people are spending more time in activities that are not so kind of damaging to the environment. And in that sense, I would say that is a very important, different type of activities, as we heard in the panel before, you know, about inclusion and somehow kind of involving more and more people in this type of activities. And I think that this is one of the kind of specific roles of the culture. But also, I would say that is, from my perspective, extremely important to have critical role of the culture, you know, in a way that is kind of putting on the table problems that are not kind of on the kind of agenda, and trying to push them on the agenda. And this is, from my perspective, one of the kind of most important roles of the culture. And I agree with you. I mean, these individual changes or changes in organization, you know, to set up kind of internal code is important. But I wouldn't be so harsh to the cultural sector, you know, to kind of to fulfill ecological or I don't know, environmental requirements, because it's already kind of low, kind of in that sense. And I would say that these things could be imposed to the real polluters. You know, for example, I will give you again from the nautical tourism. There is an article from mid of 2000s in Forbes magazine. So I'm not talking about left underground scene, but Forbes magazine that is mocking European Union because of subsidies given to the cruising industry. You know, and it said, you know, kind of, oh, European taxpayers are paying for the rich Americans to drink cocktails on a kind of ships that are polluting their coast. I mean, so that kind of issues, I think, it's important to put on the table.
Zala, from your perspective?
In my view, built environments and man-made landscapes are culture. So it's a natural. It's a natural connection to deal with culture if you want to change the environment and to make it a bit healthier and more sustainable.
When we talk about urban issues and urban planning, Europe is all about greening urban spaces, but do you see any...
That's not true.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. Do you see any kind of movement in that direction, and can you point out some good practices?
There are some good practices, and an interesting development that's happening in Slovenia, hopefully in your countries as well, is this boom in cycling infrastructure because of the European investment. But at the same time, like this, how is it called? The green recovery funds are also used to build roads and highways, and not just, for example, better railway, which is absolutely necessary if we want to have better cities and cleaner air. It's like this. It's a bit two-sided, I would say.
Sword, double-edged sword. But for my last question would be: in working in culture, how do you see connection of culture with other fields? Now, you all mentioned that you were working with other organizations and other fields or other topics. how do you see the role of culture or your individual organizations in creating alliances across sectors and to deal with the topic concretely of environment? Maybe it's a strategy that you use also for other topics, but for the topic of environmental issues, how do you go about that? Who do you create alliances with? How do you find the collaborators or the collocators, people you can talk to and you can create with?
At Pinkponilo, we actually spend a lot of time and effort with building networks within the industry because we see that for our own ways of working, we had to source fabrics from sustainable sources. We had to find other partners as well regarding textile waste management and so on. And these are information that are very difficult to find. And at the moment we are working on a not only Hungarian but a regional network of industry stakeholders to even know about each other and to know how to connect these people. And also within Hungary, there's an kind of an organic alliance between local designers, because it's a very small field, of course, and everybody kind of knows each other. So we always share our information with each other and support each other in finding the right places to go, basically. For example, recently we helped a textile designer, Budapest-based textile designer, to locate waste wool for her project, because in Hungary, where they kind of have to cut the wool from the sheep every year, but they don't use it for anything, so it's just thrown away. And now we just connected her to a farm for her project, and I think that's what we can do at the moment, but hopefully it will grow.
Yeah, I mean, for us it's kind of important to have communication and sometimes collaboration with scientific community, because they are kind of, I mean, they know the things, and also it's quite important with other institutions, like, I don't know, we are collaborating with Natural Museum, I mean, and schools, of course. And I will tell you just kind of, I think, anecdote, I mean, kind of example of the project. We did with the school kids, high school kids, and the Miljenka Buljević, a project that we kind of created the trackers for containers, because there were some rumors that, kind of all that kind of garbage is going to the same place, to the same dump, that is not really recycled and so on. And so we wanted to check, and we built through the workshop with the high school kids this, and then we put the trackers inside, and we were following on the live feed, where it's going, and it's kind of, at the end, it's going on the right place. I mean, the rumor was kind of somehow false, and kind of this type of small projects, kind of that somehow kind of a checking, in this case, it proves that they are really working well. I mean, but I think that it's important to create simple and cheap ways how to kind of to control, or kind of how to say, to monitor kind of public, not just public services, but also private companies, whatever. I mean, whoever is kind of part of the field. So I would say kind of that I mean, it's important to have collaboration, with the different actors, really, I mean, in order to create such a program, because we are not so knowledgeable in that. I mean, we need kind of this feed of knowledge, and the scientific community is the one, I mean, who can give us. And also, I think the schools are really great vehicle for spreading the message. That's it.
Zala?
Yeah, usually we know very well what we want to achieve, but we absolutely don't have enough knowledge to achieve it by ourselves. So it's very typical for us to build these big coalitions and alliances that can, for example, if we turn a street into a pedestrian zone, which we sometimes manage to achieve, we will work with a traffic planner as well as a professional storyteller. And this is all part of the same project, because we work with, for example, kindergarten kids who will tell some stories, and we will build a temporary playground based on their stories, but we also need a traffic planner to properly plan how to block cars away from the playground. So I think this is one of the most exciting parts of our jobs, I would say.
The most fun. Well, we are nearing the end. I would like to thank you all, and I would like to invite the audience to, after the panel, to grab my colloquiators and talk to them more in depth about their projects and their work. I would like to now invite Karmen Kožul from Croatian creative agency Lab 852 that is currently involved in the Magic Carpets platform to present the project. The Magic Carpets platform is supported by Creative Europe, and one of the activities of the platform is Jelsa Art Biennale. Karmen, welcome.
Thank you. Do we have videos to show? Or so first I speak, then we show videos, or what? However, maybe we can see the videos. So the project, is it okay if I sit down or shall I stand up? Okay. So this project was prepared for about 2 years. The location was, the project was about raising awareness about plastic pollution, obviously, And we worked with Spanish artists who are basically pioneers in this so-called trash art field. Spanish collective Los Interruptos. They started with little guerrilla actions, but they became kind of a mainstream artist in this field. So, to mention it here already, this is one of the strategies that we can use to get message across, to really produce something large scale, something what communicates very directly and simply, but not banal, of course. So the methodology of the project was divided between the participatory campaign, which was about collecting the plastic waste, and production of the installation itself. So the first challenge was to get the building, which is a hotel named Jadran, or Adriatic, which for us was very strong metaphorical message to what we want to say. And of course, it's really hard, you know, to convince stakeholders that kind of their reputation is not going to be threatened by implementing such a project. For example, these were owners of all the hotels in the city, in this little municipality on Croatian island Hvar. And there are many problems already regarding the ownership and the way of doing things in their company. So the communication to, you know, make them kind of believe in our project was really long. It took us a year just to get the permission to do the installation. The other problem was that in local municipality where the economy relies exclusively on the nature, it's kind of a sea and the sun tourism, doesn't yet have implemented the waste management system. And actually they got funded from EU funds to build a recycled courtyard. But at the time when we started to plan our project, they were, at that time it still looked it's going to be on time so we can put our waste after finishing the project in the courtyard. But while we were implementing, it became that there are some problems. Apparently they didn't buy the pressing machine. So somehow in the way we developed this agenda that we want to push them at the same time to actually put this courtyard in use and develop the culture of recycling in the community, which we are all very aware that it takes more time than just implementing the system. I would say it takes approximately 2 years for people after implementing the system of recycling to really start recycling properly. So we were collecting plastic bags for approximately 1 month. We have started with private homes, just, you know, reaching people randomly. But then on the way, we started to go into the supermarkets and the warehouses and started to research and find this kind of wild depots where you can find loads of trash. You saw in this video there was a big truck with loads of transparent plastic. This is what we found at one of these depots. So during the campaign, we were really kind of screaming for people to bring us more plastic because we need to actually collect 63 cubic meters of plastic to fill in all the windows and to make it, you know, so powerfully communicative towards our message. And in the end, it seemed like, oh, there's no enough trash on our island, they cannot collect. But when we researched a little bit deeper, you know, at some point after 3 weeks of collecting, and when people realized what we wanted to do, because we literally came to every supermarket, talked to directors of warehouses, to the workers, literally establishing direct connections to everybody, then they realized, okay, there are lots of plastic, it's just a little bit hidden. Also, one interesting effect in such a small community, and we've been doing projects on island for for 10 years now already, is that on a small space you can reach different stakeholders very easily. So in the city, it's much harder, you know, to reach at the same time educational sector and municipality and agriculture and so on. Here, this is all manageable, so you can really create kind of if it's clear for them what do you want and what do you need. And one very significant moment in this process for me was when my neighbor came to my mom's house, because I grew up on the island and my parents lived there, and she brought her a box of 50 plastic bags, and she said, I've seen on Facebook that Carmen is begging for plastic bags, and I realized if everybody would bring even one, they would reach their goal really easily. So this sense of what the community can do if people get together is also really important for us. And this sense of, for sure, putting the salt on the wound, but also kind of promote the idea of healing. Also to empower people that if they focus on healing, this is also possible. So I would say, I don't know how much time do I have, but 5 minutes. Okay, so I shall. Okay, so let's switch to another project, another video.
My name is Marija. Ja sam Jelena.
Ja sam Valerija Djanišić.
Ja sam Domagoj Hmura.
We are doing a workshop trying to show the physicality of sounds.
During this last week, we've been working with children on a spectrum of workshops that was created to develop different aspects of their looking at the nature, at themselves, each other.
We are using low frequency vibrations in water in order for the kids to perceive what is sound. How can they see sound?
We're working with Japanese technique of suminagashi, where they approached their work as a joint collaboration and learn how to listen to each other and work with each other while printing from the surface of water. And then we made the diaries that they used later on for the sound listening workshops.
Some of the feedback from the kids is that the sea sounds like the sea, but a little different, and that the boats are really loud, and also that some sounds that they are hearing on this place look like claps in a football stadium. And some of the kids also listen to like cascades underwater, so they characterize the sounds in a very particular way, and it's being very rewarding to listen to their opinions.
This year's experience was a site-specific collaborative performance. It brought together actually not only different participants, but also different audience that connect to these specific disciplines in a different way.
And the idea for this immersive experience was to kind of give the experience of an underwater deep environment. We had the speakers that was mainly underwater noise, but mainly focused on anthropogenic noises. And the connection with the light was to bring like a more synesthetic experience.
So my conclusion about the process would be that we made it somehow to connect different cultures, or at least subcultures, because while working in small communities, especially small island communities, which are not that much exposed and do not have enough access to contemporary art content, it's kind of art of itself to make these things merging together and working together without anyone losing its integrity.
Everyone, I established a very meaningful connection, and that brought me a little bit to another level of thinking how these collaborations make a lot of sense. So this overall experience, the performance, the installations, everything that came out, without the collaboration of everyone wouldn't be possible.
The very special thing to experience was this connection with the fishermen and sailors.
It was very nice to experience that when maybe conservative in the beginning with a little build of trust, people are very willing to collaborate and to maybe be different, become more aware of what's going on.
So altogether I think we reach like a very meaningful approach to deal with these issues that is the noise pollution, and how can we find new solutions and find new approaches to move forward together on this.
So this is a little bit different example, which is not using so much this activist approach, but it was artistic campaign that was the basis of the project. We use this hashtag switch off and listen in order to raise awareness about influence of anthropogenic noises to underwater sea life. And this had a really nice effect because the artist is at the same time a veterinarian and artist. So she uses technology and devices so that people can actually hear how in underwater these noises are experienced by fish, which is completely different impression than how we experience it while being on the surface. This is more like somebody has entered into a room actually and making some noise into a room, and this noise is affecting their communication, and when their communication is affected by noise, their breathing is affected and their reproduction is affected. So the whole ecosystem is basically affected by anthropogenic noise, and though it's been recognized as one of the main pollutant of the sea by European Commission, it's still the less researched. So it was really interesting to work on this project, and it was really sensitive, and for people it was really like to connect. And I think maybe the main thought that I would extract from this video and project and in relation to this meeting today is that what environmental themes and environmental agenda can opportunity that can bring to us is actually to what was shown in this video, to connect really wide spectrum of people, which usually don't get together in cultural events so much. Usually, especially on the island, you have this, you know, tourist kind of folklore cultural events which locals usually don't attend. Contemporary art production usually you don't even have, and if you have it, you will attract only cultural audiences from urban centers. And this kind of themes and subjects are really something that we can all gather around and create these little, sometimes permanent, sometimes just temporary and emerging communities of action. Thank you.